I've been playing the brand new Dragon Quest III HD-2D Remake for over 40 hours now, thanks to Square-Enix kindly providing a review copy, and I'm kicking myself for not getting into this series sooner. Here's why. Dragon Quest is almost ubiquitous as one of the big examples of the classic RPG, and its roots extend back to the 80s when the original game released, and there's been a lot of work to update this for 2024, but I think they've struck a really healthy balance in making this feel modern without alienating classic fans. First, let me talk about the visuals, because this game delivers an incredibly gorgeous blend of 2D sprites in 3D environments. The sprite work is fantastic by itself, but the environments and environmental detail is next level beautiful too. Every location in the game world is scenic, interesting, and highly detailed, with a large variety of architecture and a surprisingly dense and diverse set of unique rooms in basically every single explorable location. And it's not just sprites plopped on top of 3D backgrounds. The sprites themselves are occluded by shadows and affected by light sources dynamically, and the lighting in the game is superb in every single environment too. Beyond just the graphics, the presentation in general is pretty solid, with contextual environmental noises like rushing water when you get near a river, and dynamic changing backgrounds for battles that are affected not only by location, but time of day too. And on top of that, the music is fantastic, though the soundtrack is a bit small, leading to you spending most of the game just hearing a handful of tracks, but you could probably attribute this to the time period in which the game was originally released. And in a similar vein, a lot of the sound effects are still in an 8-bit style, but in a more intentional and charming way. Additionally, there's quite a bit of new voice acting for a number of characters and scenes, and it's very well done and over the top when it needs to be, but balanced in a manner that keeps it grounded and realistic within this world and the game's tone. And speaking of this world, this story has definitely been expanded a bit from the earlier versions of the game, and while I won't delve into too many specifics to keep from spoiling anything, what I've played so far seems like it thoughtfully and respectfully expands on the lore and the characters, including plenty of new cutscenes, some revamped and extended writing, and an overall massive presentation boost for a lot of pivotal moments. The writing is just excellent all around. Something that sticks out about this game versus a lot of others in the RPG landscape is how almost personable the tone and the writing style is, and not just for the characters in this world, but for the game itself. It's like the game itself has a personality and is its own character. And of course, there's the actual characters who, in my experience, are very memorable compared to a lot of other RPGs. There are all kinds of unnamed characters all around this world, but there are so many that are quirky and fun and have something that leaves an impact, like maybe a shopkeeper with an almost too good to be true inventory, or a man who is a bit too pushy to give you a special item. It's encounters like these that make this world fun to traverse and makes every location memorable in some way. The more I played though, the more I realized that this game is deceptively complex, both in scope and story. I didn't realize at first, but the little things some NPCs would say that seemed almost like offhanded remarks ended up being pretty consequential to the wider story later on. And tonally, the game is pretty lighthearted and almost goofy at times, but still full of heart. But of course, it can get pretty dark, and the game does a good job of striking a good balance of tone throughout. However, if you're expecting a grim, somber, depressing tone, I don't think you're gonna find that here, at least not from the 40 hours I've played so far. To dive into the gameplay itself, this is unapologetically a turn-based RPG with random encounters, a deep class system, and all the bells and whistles you'd hope for if that's your jam. But that's not all. There have been quite a few additions and quality of life improvements that modernize this game for a new audience. The game is built around a class system where you put together a party of your hero and 3 fully customizable allies that you can recruit and replace at any time in the game's first town. Every character's appearance and voice can be customized too, and an integral part of this system is that every character has a personality type based on their initial stat allowances, apart from the hero whose personality is determined by an introductory questionnaire. These personality types affect your stat growth as the character gains experience through battles, and some personality types mesh better with some classes, and these personality types can be changed through a number of ways, including in-game items like books and equipable accessories. Additionally, there's a reclassing system that comes into play later on, and it's just incredibly deep and rewarding to learn to fully grasp and even maybe exploit this intricate system to build a party that you're really happy with. That being said, it can be a little bit overwhelming to learn too, and I found myself struggling at first, but fortunately the game has an inbuilt guide that explains pretty much anything you'd want to know, which I managed to completely forget about until over 30 hours in. For those who have played one of the older releases, you'll be delighted to know that there's a number of new and enhanced features here, including a brand new Monster Wrangler vocation that's tied to the new Monster Arena, along with the option of offering one of your party members as a volunteer that can be used in other save files. I personally went with a Monster Wrangler in my party because I liked the idea of, well, wrangling monsters. And to do that, you've got to explore, and oh boy, exploring you will do. Like I mentioned earlier, the game's world is pretty huge huge and diverse, with all kinds of cities, settlements, hidden secluded spots, caves, and more to find as you journey across the overworld by foot or other means. There's a time of day cycle that progresses when you're on the overworld map, and the time of day can affect a number of things. First and foremost, the game's beautiful lighting makes it so that all the times of day have their own special touches, but I don't want to spoil all of it. But the time of day mechanics actually play into the exploration quite a bit more than you'd expect. A town can transform from a bustling yet tame merchant town by day to an alluring, mischievous party town by night. Plus, the freedom of exploration and seemingly endless number of things to find in this world is also affected by the day-night cycle, like breaking into a shopkeeper's home while he sleeps to take some goods from behind his counter, or having certain special encounters with NPCs that you would normally not see while the sun is out. However, a new effect of this cycle is also the appearance rate of some monsters for you to wrangle. One of the biggest new additions to this game is the entire monster wrangling system, where you can encounter and collect friendly monsters around the world to add to your repertoire in the monster arena, along with expanding your monster wrangler's abilities too. There's a number of hidden monsters scattered all over the game world, and collecting them can be a lot of fun, especially with the assistance of the monster wrangler's abilities. Before I get too into the monster arenas though, let me quickly talk about battles themselves. As you explore the world, you'll encounter random battles against a wide range of enemies, and the presentation of these battles is unique as it starts from an outside view of your party, which is a cool way of seeing how far you've come, as every weapon type in the game has a unique appearance. While you can choose to attack or use items, abilities, and spells, what sets this game apart from previous versions is the ability to set tactics. You have the option of controlling each party member's actions individually, or asking them to act on their own, allowing them to automatically choose what attacks, abilities, and items they use, with options to conserve MP, focus on healing, or even go all out with their abilities. Personally, a lot of the time I'd have 3 party members automatically attack while I directly controlled my sage, and this is especially helpful for grinding experience, which, for better or for worse, you probably will find yourself having to do at some point, because this game is also unapologetically challenging. One of the great things about exploration in an old-school random encounter system is that the desire to explore has to outweigh the desire to avoid random mob fights, and it's kind of delightful to be rewarded for exploration outside of simply following the easiest or fastest path. In fact, there's so many little items and paths in this world with tons of secrets to find and collect, it's almost impressive given the age of the original game. It's something that a lot of modern games have moved away from, and while the random encounter gameplay style does still have its flaws and downsides, there's still a really appealing charm to it, especially during a time where it's becoming more and more rare to see this kind of thing. Unlike other games in the genre, the game has a big focus on resource and item management. Early on, MP is kind of the most valuable resource you have, and MP recovery items can be scant because the game's unique approach to healing and refreshing your party members, let alone saving, which can only be done manually in towns, is gonna lead to you probably hitting a difficulty wall sometimes, at least if you're anything like me. Fortunately, there are 3 difficulty options, with a base difficulty, a lower difficulty, and a higher difficulty, with the lower one keeping your HP at 1 when dealt a killing blow. But not everyone's gonna want to rely on that either. Of course, there's also a brand new autosave function that helps quite a bit too, but if you're underleveled and can't clear a fight, you might just have to take the L and regroup after some grinding and losing a bunch of money. One small issue with the grinding though is that these battles move very slowly. I'd argue almost painfully slowly, especially at the default speed. I'm so glad there's an option to actually increase the speed up to 2 times, but it honestly still feels kinda slow to me. I did eventually get used to it at the max speed, but the downside is that increasing the battle speed also increases the animation speed. It's at a point where I couldn't imagine playing this game at the default speed and being able to enjoy it nearly as much. And if there was only one thing I could change about this entire game, it absolutely would be just reworking the entire base battle speed to be faster by default. To get back to the monster arena though, this is an optional series of tournaments where you pit a party of monsters that you've wrangled against an NPC opponent and rise through the ranks in the arena of different cities to earn rewards in the form of golden items. But in my experience, that's about all there really is to it at this point, and while there may be some grand reward or special secret at the end of it, so far I'm really not that invested into the monster arena, and I've had a lot more fun just kind of scouring the world for more monsters to collect. I plan to put some more time into the mode eventually, but so far, while I can see the appeal for a lot of people, I'm personally more interested in exploring the world and never really felt a need or a pull to go back to the monster arena, at least not anytime soon. And just to kind of expound on the exploration, there's a sense of freedom in this world that I don't think most people would expect from a game that is, in essence, from the 80s. There's this constant feeling of wonder and discovery, and I wish I could convey the feeling of joy I felt when, I don't know, I accidentally jumped off the side of a tower or heard a guard mention a guy living in a well and discovered that there's an entire business operation down there. But the freedom extends even deeper into the game's mechanics themselves. Not only can you create a huge number of party compositions with the different vocations, every character has that unique personality functionality, meaning that no two parties are ever going to be alike. This dynamic way of weaving together a number of systems creates this sense of nearly infinite depth. Fiddling with different classes and party compositions is very addicting, and when I would eventually settle on a composition, I always had that nagging feeling of, well, what if this class would work better in this party, or what if this personality type would be a better fit? And even then, different battles can call for different strategies, which is a wonderful way of encouraging the player to experiment with these systems instead of just hoping they might. As I pour more and more time into this game, I constantly find myself forgetting that I'm playing a 30-year-old game in essence. The presentation is beautiful, the vocation system is addicting, and the classic RPG mechanics have aged incredibly well and are improved most where it counts. This is a game for both old and new fans alike, and if you're interested in Dragon Quest and don't know where to start, I personally believe that this is the absolute best entry point, hands down. To be clear, this is technically my first full Dragon Quest game, and while I played a little bit of the original Dragon Quest 3 on the Game Boy before diving into this remake, I don't think I could go back to the Game Boy version. Dragon Quest 3 HD-2D Remake has the charm and essence of a classic title, but stands on its own amongst modern games with its beautiful visuals, deep mechanics, challenging gameplay, and a fun, charismatic world. I've already put 40 hours into it, and I can easily see that time at least doubling with how much this game has to offer. So if you have any interest at all, regardless of whether or not you played the original game, I wholeheartedly recommend playing this, and I hope that the planned remakes of 1 and 2 are able to achieve the same stellar quality that this one has. Before I go, I quickly want to thank my patrons and channel members, including Nats Ash and Throwback Mego Solo in the Played Every Game tier, along with all of these wonderful people you see on your screen. And of course, I appreciate you, person watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Until then, have a fantastic day.